If I were starting testosterone replacement therapy today, or even considering starting, here's the information that I would want to know. I wanted to make this video for those that are just starting out, those men, those dads that are out there, and perhaps you found out that you've got low T or something's off. Maybe you got some brain fog, you're tired, you don't carry muscle the way you used to, you're storing a little more body fat. I wanted to make this video in hopes of helping you guys, maybe give you some tools, tactics, tips, techniques that I've learned in my 15 years on this journey. I got to look, I'm not a doctor. I'm not even a medical professional. I'm just a normal guy. I'm a husband. I'm a dad of 3 boys, all 3 of which were conceived while on testosterone, by the way, so it is very possible. I've got a Master of Science, and I've been on the TRT journey and actually using TRT myself for 15 years, just over 15 years. And I've been able to share a few things and help some men along the pathway. So I wanted to share with you. Some of what I speak is absolutely, much of it is based on experience and data. I'm big on data, specifically blood work. But I want to share with you what has worked for me and some of these other men. And I know there's a lot of opinions and absolutes, that people, tend to have. And so I just want to share what's worked for me and other men in hopes that, maybe this can help you. All right. So, my short backstory, how I got into all of this is that, at about the age of 37, I went into the gym, did some dumbbell press. I was under some hundreds and they didn't go up. And that was one of my key and core lifts. It still is. And I was going up, north of 100s, but on this particular day, they didn't go up. And what I didn't tell you is I had to struggle just to get into the gym. I had no energy. It was pure discipline, willpower, just to get in there. So when these hundreds didn't go up, it scared me, quite frankly. So I ultimately ended up going to the doctor and got tested for total testosterone. I was 270. Some weeks later, I went back. I was 330. Honestly, there's not a lot of difference between 270 and 330 on total testosterone. It's almost like waves in an ocean when you got tested, what time of day, that kind of stuff. But both are low. Now, both also show up as normal. You need to know that on blood tests, 270, 330. They vary a little bit based on what lab company you're using. But what you do want to know or look into when you do your research, and I do recommend you doing some research, plenty of research before starting on a journey with TRT, is that these labs, this concept of normal has been lowered throughout the years. So go look that up, and sort of make a determination for yourself. But I got to tell you, at 270 and 330 total testosterone, and by the way, we didn't even know to test for free testosterone, and that matters a lot. Both total and free testosterone are important and need to be considered in your working with whatever medical professional, qualified medical professional, in your decision and your journey. So the bottom line is that I was low. The bottom line is we ran the test that we knew to run, and I should have run the free test as well, but it is what it is. And so I did not, so first, kind of first and foremost, I had to accept the fact that my T was low. I didn't want to accept that. What kind of man has low testosterone? Especially a man that's been fit most of his life and been in the gym and doing the major lifts. Squats, if you read studies, squats increase testosterone levels. Good luck with that. To get a systemic long-term raise in testosterone doing squats, it never worked for me. So that said, I had to accept where I was. I did not at all want to get on any drug, and that included testosterone. I was at the time I was probably 80% organic. It didn't cost a fortune like it seems to today to eat, organic and protein, etc. But nevertheless, I was running clean. I was healthy focused, and I had low T. So ultimately, I tried a whole bunch of natural stuff. I tried a whole bunch of over-the-counter stuff. In my opinion, what worked best, and unfortunately, I was not getting blood work back then regularly. It's so easy now. By the way, a person can go to discountedlabs.com. It's all approved under a doctor, so you don't need to go directly to your doctor. You can just go discountedlabs.com, and you can get whatever test run that you want. It'll set up some time, an appointment, and work through Quest Labs And you can figure out, what you got going on with complete blood work, etc. From that website. It's fantastic. But we didn't have all that back then, or at least if it was out there, I didn't know about it. And so ultimately, I could not naturally fix my testosterone levels, no matter how much I exercised or cleaned up my diet. And the supplements that I did take that I think worked, they were kind of like gray market. They were kind of like at the vitamin shop or GNC or whatever, behind a blocked glass. And it's my experience, if they worked at all, most didn't, then they tend to have, they would work for about 6 weeks. And then they would kind of like stop working. And most of the labels said to use for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. I figure there's only 2 reasons why they would say that. One is perhaps they cause some kind of harm or damage to the body. Maybe, maybe not. I didn't know. I wasn't testing for blood work the way I am now. And or perhaps they stopped working after 6 weeks. And I didn't want the yo-yo and temporary. I wanted to be fixed long-term, etc. And I also wanted to get to root cause. I sort of suspect I know what root cause is and still is today, but I can't prove that out. And I never fixed root cause. And so root cause being our world, the U.S., it's just full of too many, toxins. There's too many estrogens and estrogen mimicking chemicals that are getting into the body, just playing havoc on the endocrine system, creating war on testosterone. Whether that's the water that's coming out of our tap that's not properly filtering estrogen, which all that gets into the water supply system, right? As folks that are using estrogen, thinking women here especially, as they're using the restroom and whatnot, how is that filtered out properly, cleansed out? What about all the pharmaceutical drugs? So there's that, there's the BPAs, and, go read the book Estrogeneration by Dr. Anthony J. It'll shed some light on this whole thing. And so I had to understand, come to the terms of, I'm low, the world has attacked by design or not, whatever, it is what it is. And I was going to ultimately need testosterone in order to, kind of get my life back. And so I did. Back then when I started, and I think this is something you ought to hear, it was 1 shot a week at 200 milligrams. And with that 1 shot a week, so I'm highly sensitive to peaks and valleys of testosterone. And what was happening is I was going through a half-life of the ester of testosterone. Whether it's cypionate or enanthate, they've got about a 1-day difference half-life. Let's just call it 7 days of a half-life between cypionate or enanthate. Those are the 2 types of testosterone that you're going to get legally prescribed when you work through your medical professional. So as I was going through a shot once a week, which is pretty dang convenient, I was also going through a half-life. And so when I would do an injection of 1 mil, 1 cc, which is 200 milligrams, I was going way up. But then I was also coming down, pretty hard, pretty fast, pretty low. And so because of that, I had some side effects, some water retention, and a little bit of estrogen conversion. And so what I did, back in those days, we didn't know. And so it was just automatic, oftentimes then, when the doctor would prescribe an anti-estrogen. In this case, it was called Arimidex. And so I would take the smallest dose of that Arimidex that I could. And I did that in order to sort of not block totally or crush estrogen, estradiol, but to minimize it. The problem with that, in my opinion, is that we don't know what this does to the body long term. So that's something that someone ought to research. Do you want to take the drug Arimidex? I say you should not. There are very rare exceptions, and if that is the case, it ought to be done in the smallest of amounts for the smallest amount of time, and there ought to be a plan to come off. I do not believe that it is a long-term solution because there's better ways. So, in my journey of testosterone, I started with about a 23 gauge needle. This is something you guys ought to hear. That's far too big, and there are far better ways to do it now. So what a lot of us do is we will draw with something big, like an 18, to get it out of the bottle and into the syringe. And we will backload it, pull the plunger out of the back of something much smaller, like a 28 gauge needle, and the associated syringe. And you can look up videos on backloading. This is the way I do it now, 15 years later. But at minimum, do like a 25 gauge. That's the biggest that I would recommend anybody putting into their body when they're injecting this stuff, because we want to think long term. We don't want scar tissue to build up, etc. So 25 gauge, that's about the largest a man should put into his body, because you're poking holes, and over time scar tissue can build up. Fast forward today, I'm liking 28 gauge, 27. I've done the 30 gauge, which is even smaller. It's just very, very slow. And so in my mind, I'm looking for the sweet spot between long-term, no scar tissue, short-term, free of pain or minimizing discomfort, be a better word, and then how fast this is to do. All right, so you fast forward, and I did 23 gauges, and I ended up with, going to a smaller 25 gauge, and I did that for probably 10 years. It hit all parts of my body, especially my quads, sometimes the delt. I would hit the glutes as well. You fast forward to today, and I'm actually using a 28 gauge backloaded into that, and I'm just hitting the delts. I also do an injection frequency of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. A lot of guys do this. A lot of guys love it. A lot of people can also get away with twice a week, like a Monday, Thursday injection frequency. Some can do once a week, no problems, no symptoms, no side effects, no water retention, no issues. That never worked for me. I'm a Monday, Wednesday, Friday guy. So I guess what I would want you to hear there is frequency matters. If you've got a doctor that's recommending you do one shot every other week, I understand that it's great for convenience, but I'm telling you, it's terrible for peaks and valleys. It is not optimized. The highs are high and their lows are lows. And with this whole game of testosterone, the journey, we want to minimize the lows and minimize the highs. We want to be steady Eddie as much as possible. So maybe that's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Maybe it's twice a week. Once a week some men, but almost never. I can't think of any time where it would be every other week. I don't like pellets. If starting out, I would not recommend that. Maybe there's an exception to that. Maybe you travel for your job or work or something. But my problem with the pellets is a whole lot goes in, and then you're waiting, months. So what happens if you run through the half-lives and you hit crash, you hit bottom, and then you got to go low T or even perhaps real low T, almost without T, until your next follow-up. So I don't like pellets mainly for that point. The androgels and stuff don't seem to work very well. So they just don't absorb in my experience and from working with the people that I work with. So I'm not a fan of the androgels. There's only two forms of delivery, that I like and recommend. One, of course, is the injection. I think it's the gold standard, tried, true, proven, etc. And the other would be a cream applied scrotally, preferably twice a day, AM and PM. Some get away for once a day. In full transparency, I've never used it. There's a temporary spike in DHT, and I never really wanted to mess with that. Doesn't mean I won't. Doesn't mean it's not a good delivery system. A lot of men are very, very happy. But anyway, I guess the bottom line it's the two forms of delivery that I recommend or can recommend. One I've done, which is, of course, is the injections, and the other would be the cream applied, via the scrotum. All right, so I think one of the key messages here, takeaways, is make sure that you find and work with a good medical professional, a urologist, an endocrinologist. These guys and gals, they're, of course, very smart, very highly trained, educated, etc. But real life, real world experience tells me that they're not, for whatever reason, they're not prescribing the best methods for testosterone treatment. You go back to the one shot every other week. I've seen far too much of that. Again, they're smart people, but I don't like their delivery methods or system. The frequency is off specifically. If they'll even prescribe, if they'll even test for total and free T. And so maybe they have some insurance arm wrestling that has to be done, and maybe there's some pay issues, getting paid for those tests, but those tests need to be run. With that said, it doesn't mean there aren't good doctors out there, urologists, endocrinologists, general practitioners. Are they open? Are they willing? Are they humble? Are they learning? Are they, hungry for more information? Look, they're not getting educated on this stuff back in med school, however long that's been. The pharmacy rep is probably not properly educating, I'm guessing here, them on proper testosterone use and delivery systems. Sometimes, of course, you got to follow the money and look at where the money is being spent and made and where the research is. But the bottom line is you got to find you a good medical professional. I've been pretty happy. Well, here's a couple that I work with and send guys to myself. One is if you're in Texas, I currently like Ways to Well. They do very good. There's a bit of a waiting list for these guys right now, but once you start working with them, if you do, they're fantastic. If you go to them, I've got an affiliate with them, mention Thumos for a small discount. But mainly I use these guys myself and recommend them only because I know and trust them. It's just quality what they're delivering as far as the service, the education, and the treatment and whatnot. There's another one out there, telemedicine. This is Viking Alternative Medicine, owned by Sam Ridgway. Sam's a good guy. He's got a Facebook group as well, Viking Alternative, so you can go learn and follow. And they're in a lot of states, and so this is virtual, this is Zoom based, this is telemedicine. Phone calls, Zooms, but it's just so easy, and those medications can be shipped to the door. So they're in Texas and beyond Texas. That's just a couple. There's lots of other ones out there that are good. To be honest with you, this day and age, my heroes are not necessarily the doctors. There's some good doctors out there, of course. My heroes right now are the nurse practitioners. That's a generalized statement, I get it, but what I'm finding is they're learning, they're hungry, they're progressive, they're geeking out on this stuff like I am. They're in the forums, they're researching, they're attending the conferences, and so they understand what works, they understand what doesn't work, they understand and listen very well, at least they seem to for the most part. They're cutting edge. Most doctors, if you mention something like, hey, you want to take 160 milligrams a week of testosterone, delivered via Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they look at you like you're crazy. Why would you want to take that many shots? And so then you get into the half-life discussion and minimizing peaks and valleys and symptom resolution and feeling great, feeling optimized. So anyway, make sure you're working with a good medical professional. So, I've hit on a lot of things, right? So work with a good medical professional. Make sure you've got the right delivery, type. Make sure you've got the right frequency in your dosing. Let's talk a little bit about a starting dose, a proper starting dose. And again, I'm not a doctor, but this is just what I found that has worked for me and tends to work for a lot of other men. I like somewhere around 160 milligrams, again, delivered with some frequency, 3 times a week, twice a week. That does not mean that your number couldn't be 140 milligrams per week as a starting dose. Maybe it's 120. Maybe it's 180, but about 160. If you're way under that, if you're way over that, you might want to pause, ask more questions, get more education and whatnot. 200 milligrams a week. There are plenty of guys that are, starting out and doing and staying on 200 milligrams, forever. They tend to be healthy as far as I can tell, but how do I know? I don't know without looking at their data. Hopefully they're looking at their own data, aka blood work. 200 milligrams a week. Here's the deal. If you start that high, you might start off and feel like Superman. You might continue to feel like Superman, but how would you have felt at 140 milligrams a week, 160? So anything that you're taking, drug, although testosterone is pretty dang natural, once that ester cleaves away, the cypionate or the enanthate, which gets its half-life, which allows it to last longer in your body just sees testosterone. So it's pretty bioidentical and natural as far as that goes. But what if you could have gotten away with 140 and felt great? That's the point there. The problem is if you go with something like 100 milligrams, and again, this could work for some men, But if it doesn't, then typically what happens is the body just recognizes testosterone. It shuts down its own production. It's already low, remember, so it shuts down what little production it had, and now you're running on 100 milligrams. What if you're still low? So what if you've just replaced what you had, but you didn't give yourself enough to feel good? Now look, here's what you hadn't heard from me. When a man gets optimized on testosterone, life is good. Not perfect. You still got mind, body, spirit, heart. You got all these things that are connected to your sleep, to your happiness, to your overall health, etc. But I got to tell you, when a man gets optimized on hormones, and especially testosterone, it is the master hormones. There's others. There's thyroid that ought to be looked at sort of head to toe. There's insulin. There's others out there. D is also a hormone. A lot of people don't know that. But testosterone specifically, when that gets optimized, a man tends to feel good. Super good. When he cuts carbs or gets his diet and eating halfway right, all of a sudden he can see some more muscle mass or lean muscle mass, or he gets leaner with ease, whereas it didn't quite work before. Brain fog is often healed. It's beautiful. The man has energy. He has drive. He has confidence. He has mojo. He gets his mojo back. I've got this. This is my own story, brothers. I've got so many examples I could share with you with men getting their mojo, their confidence, their life back. If you're concerned about health aspects of testosterone, is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? Well, I got to tell you, a man having metabolic syndrome, a man having blood sugars off and high triglycerides and cholesterol, there's nothing healthy about that. In fact, every man ought to get tested, comprehensive head-to-toe blood work to see what's going on throughout his body, looking at lipids, looking at sugars, looking at kidney function, liver function, etc. And I got to tell you, in my own experience and working with other men, again, not as their practitioner, but just as sort of a mentor, friend, coach, etc., I see a lot of men get very healthy, at least looking at the data, the way they look, feel, and perform, and looking at blood work, and Oura Ring as well, by the way. They're healthier now than they've ever been. And a big part of that, a catalyst, a baseline, foundational, is the testosterone that they put into their body, because it's a master hormone for men, for them to look, feel, and perform at their best, to be healthier. So I think the why behind the testosterone, if a man is low, is a no-brainer. Men can absolutely look, feel, and perform better than ever. As far as side effects, go do your research. Get in Facebook, go to the forums, get on Google, search this stuff out. But here's what I think you ought to know. Can side effects occur? Absolutely. And there's ways to minimize or eliminate pretty much all of those side effects. Again, you gotta measure it via blood work. Not doing too much testosterone, doing the least amount that's needed. The injection frequency can be really important when it comes to minimizing side effects. But go do your research, but also understand when you're in the forums and such, very few people tend to talk about how it's changed their life and they feel great. The forums tend to attract, in my experience, men who are compulsing or having issues. So just know, the baseline of men in those forums are people that are really overly compulsing, focused on it, not giving it time, or men that are having problems. And Lord only knows what some of these guys are doing as far as drugs, alcohol, other stuff, relationship problems, other things that aren't fixed. So just know there could be a built-in bias for people having problems when they're on the forums. So kind of take that into perspective, take it all in. Some real-life side effects to experience, especially at first until you get dialed in. Water retention. That's probably first and foremost. Not uncommon at all. I tell a lot of men, trust the process. Do your frequency of your dosing. That tends to help. Drink plenty of water, but give this time. It may take a couple of weeks. It may take several weeks. But over time, the body's going to adjust, assuming your dosing is right and you're doing things right. Water retention is one. Increase hematocrit, red blood cells. Go look into that. I got to tell you, I've got my own opinions. I think it's a bit overrated. I think that a lot of people are confusing it with an inherent disease. That's a form of cancer that folks get. That's very rare, but it is out there. But the bottom line is, do your research on, increased red blood cells. You'll see this term blood thickening. I got to tell you, I run a pretty high hematocrit, and my blood is not thick. I know this because I've donated blood. I'm hydrated. I take fish oil. And when I go donate blood, it is thin, and it not dangerously thin, optimized thin, in my opinion, and it flows very fast. So just use caution, get educated. If you hear, testosterone thickens the blood, what does that really mean? And is this really a problem? Look into, guys working out at high altitude, because there's advantages of that as well. But anyway, that's something you're going to want to do your research on also. And then, of course, there's the other hormones that it's going to push or change, such as estrogen, specifically estradiol, E2. Again, going back to minimizing the ups and downs, which will minimize ups and downs of estrogen as well. And that also includes DHT. That's the hormone, the male hormone responsible for drive and aggression. But also too much of it can perhaps be a bad thing if we're looking at prostate health, hair loss, etc. So again, just the right amount of testosterone, just the right amount of, the frequency of injection matters there as well. Those are probably the most common of side effects. As far as aggression and whatnot, I got to tell you, for the most part, I find it's making men happier. They feel like a man again. They've got their mojo. The anxiety actually can go down. They've got energy. Who's not happier with more energy? We as dads, we need energy not only to get to the gym, but to take care of our family, to go up the stairs and watch the babies when they're young, to put the kids at bed at nighttime. Who doesn't want more of that? Nobody wants to be falling asleep and lethargic and worthless at 2 p.m. It can make a man more of what he is. So if he's taking too much of testosterone and he's an asshole already, kind of like money, it can make you more of what you are. But for the most part, the stuff of roid rage and all this stuff, come on, we're talking about therapeutic doses of a hormone that the body clearly needs. Look, if your doctor senses a problem with insulin or thyroid, they won't hesitate. They're going to go treat that and fix that. Why is it not the case with testosterone? It's an essential hormone for men. Too many men are dying a slow death in silence all alone. A lot of men don't even know that they're deficient in testosterone. But I got to tell you, once it gets replaced, therapeutic levels, working with a good medical professional, life can be good again. That's a lot of information. I hope this helps for those that are just starting out. Leave me questions. Ask me your questions, comments, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, as this helps to grow this channel. If you like this content, I'll keep more of it coming. I appreciate it. Have a great day.